Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. We are continuing our coverage of the federal takeover of DC's Metropolitan Police Department. National Guard troops are officially on the streets of DC right now. My guest is Darius Baxter, founder and CEO of GOODProjects, A. Scott Bolton, criminal defense attorney. Let me ask you this, Darius, because I think both what Ron and Donald are saying kind of go to the heart of what we've just seen, such as that crowd rush of that convenience store over there off of Benning Road at Heckinger Mall. And in the interviews that we've seen this week, one of the ladies was saying, and this is such an important piece, if children are hungry, because they were stealing, chips and stuff like that, she said, I will give them food. But she said they were just wreaking havoc. And I think that there needs to be a tough love conversation because sometimes, certainly, there is a lot of them when we're talking about this occupation and this federal takeover. But you know this just as well as anything. Sometimes it is us. And what does that us conversation look like from your perspective, Derek?
Well, Harold, I think that's an amazing question. And I think it's the right question. Over the course of the last decade, as I pushed into my career, I've prided myself on waking up every single day asking, how do I dismantle systems of inequality? And we're particularly having this moment in time right now, and let's just call a spade a spade. This is not a law and order issue. This is a racial issue. This is an attack on the Black community here in the District of Columbia. If our population was 70% Caucasian, we wouldn't be having these conversations. But I preface with that for a reason, right? Because I talk about priding myself on breaking down systems of inequality. Mm-hmm. And over the last 10 years, very often the rooms that I find myself in, the conversations are the man, them. Mm-hmm. How do we, and obviously during the era of 2020, with issues around racial equity, the conversation continued to push forward farther and farther. But I've grown up here in Washington, D.C. I have a Washington, D.C. birth certificate. I went to college here in Washington, D.C. I continue my journey as a social entrepreneur here in Washington, D.C. And all along that path, and I think we all can agree with this experience, the person sitting across from me more often than not that has been perpetuating the system hasn't been somebody of an opposite race. It's been somebody that looks exactly like me. I've grown up in a city with a Black mayor. I've grown up in a city with Black council members. I've grown up in a city with Black police officers. I've grown up in a city with Black bankers, Black doctors, Black lawyers, as highlighted by this conversation. And all along the way, we continue to see DC continuing to have one of the highest levels, particularly of income inequality in the country, right? Who do we truly have to blame? So to your question, Harold, I'm deeply concerned about where we are as a city, and for a host of different reasons, right? Like, the issues that we're seeing with young people isn't one that was created because it wasn't one that was created in the last 2 decades by a white person. It was one that was created in the last 2 decades from the top, not having enough accountability for young people so that when they're going into convenience stores and they're doing those things, that they don't have a fear of reprimand as it relates to the law. That they know I'm going to be in prison or I may be detained for a day or two, but then I'll be right back on the street. And it's unfortunate we actually live in an era of time right now where having an ankle monitor on is actually a badge of honor. Not being able to read or write. But having an ankle monitor on is the same as having a gold chain for a young person, right? And on the other side of that, we used to live in an era where if a young person did something wrong, and I feel like very much so, I was the last generation of this, you heard this village concept, that it wasn't one person that was telling that young person to do the right thing. You had your neighbor, you had your aunt, your uncle, you might get a whooping from at least 15 different people. And we're living in an era right now where even, take the 15 people out of it, we have parents that don't even want to parent. There's so many young people in this city that are raising their siblings now because parents have said that I'm giving up, right? So bump a village, we don't even have parents that are stepping in for their young people. So if you're a young person, and let me finish my point, A. Scott. Okay. So you have young people that are growing up in the city with zero accountability. And then we have an expectation for them to do the right thing. And that's not a recipe for success in the long term.